Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast, brought to you by BuckeyeHuddle.com. I'm Mark Givler. Got Kevin Noon here with me today. It's a special commitment edition of the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast, and it's a portal commitment edition of the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast. Ohio State has flipped former five-star, possibly, depending who you ask, number one quarterback in the 2024 recruiting class, Julian Sayin. He had a cup of coffee with Alabama there, signed immediately, just about immediately entered the portal here. Maybe gave it a week after the Nick Saban news. So not a very long stay as an Alabama signee. Now a Buckeye. Kevin, we've been reporting on this quite a bit in the days leading up. Sounded good for the Buckeyes. We thought this would happen. Just your reaction now that this is official.
Yeah, he didn't even get to unpack the boxes at Alabama by any stretch of the imagination. So probably easy to pack up and head up north to Columbus. But another California quarterback. I'm trying to think of the last California quarterback for Ohio State. Oh yeah, C.J. Stroud was certainly from California, and that's some big shoes to fill right there. And then he doesn't have to be the next CJ Stroud. He just has to be the first Julian Sayin. And he's not the biggest kid, 6'1", 195, but once we get to his footage here in a second, I mean, he can make all of the throws. It is, you're going to be hard pressed to find a quarterback that ranks right up there, or maybe even a little bit better in terms of the rankings than what Ohio State had signed in Aaron Nolan. But Ohio State suddenly now has one of the craziest quarterback classes. I mean, everybody thought that Georgia was going to have that, as it was in line to sign two quarterbacks, and Dylan Raiola at the last minute flips over to Nebraska. But now Ohio State with the two 2024s, and of course everybody wonders how the quarterback room is going to shake up. And we talked about that a little bit on a weekend edition of the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast. So be sure to check that one out here at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. But when it comes to saying the quarterback, I mean, it's pretty difficult to find a lot of issues. And he's playing in California. He's not playing in South Dakota, like Keenholt style or whatever. I mean, he's going against legitimate dudes. No, he's not going against modern day all the time, a little further south in the state in Calabasas, but there's still plenty of talent there to be had.
Yeah, he's supremely talented. He's got one of the quickest releases I've seen of any quarterback prospect the last couple of years come out of the high school level. It's just out so fast. Great touch, great accuracy. Just a tremendous amount of arm talent. That throw kind of across his body there on the money there to the sideline. That's an NFL throw. He's got the big arm to drive the ball down the seam. He's got the touch to kind of go down the sideline and drop it in the bucket. He's got great maneuverability within the pocket. If you can, you'll watch some of his highlights here and just see him kind of shift around and reset and just throw darts. Just a highly, highly impressive thrower, but very athletic, not a statue. He can move quite a bit. He's a guy who I think would prefer, of course, to move around in the pocket, move around behind the line of scrimmage and make a throw, but he can hurt you with his legs if you let him. If you're going to give him some space, he can go. He's got a little bit of wiggle to him. He's not overly tall, about 6'1", 6'1.5", but he's pretty compact. He's solid. He's almost 200 pounds. Probably after, this winter probably is 200 pounds. So he's a very sturdy kid. But just to me, the two things I love the most about him go back to how quickly he can get the ball out and just how accurate he is. I mean, he's throwing some of these throws into these windows are just big time throws. So just, again, quick release, hyper accurate. And for me, just talking to a lot of people nationally, there's a lot of people who felt he was the number one quarterback in the country in 2024. And I know Ohio State, when Dylan, again, it feels like forever ago, when Dylan Raiola initially decommitted from Ohio State, this was the guy this was the first call they made. This was the guy they wanted at the very, very top of their wish list. And they couldn't get him off the Alabama commitment, but they were able to kind of swing again here with Nick Saban's retirement, and we're able to get this done. Um, you know, let's get into the elephant in the room here, because that is going to be something people ask. If you watched the Saturday afternoon longer form show we did kind of leading into this, you'll already know this. I'm going to beat a dead horse here a little bit, but I don't view this as a major issue in the quarterback room in terms of the culture fit. And again, I am Mr. like, be careful about the culture, be careful what you wish for, be careful what you do when you bring someone in from outside the program and you've made promises. Like, nobody like understands or believes that more than I do. But you've brought in Will Howard. You've already told everyone in that quarterback room, you've told all the veterans, and these are veterans now. Devin Brown's a third-year player. Lincoln Kienholz is a second-year player. You are now veterans. They've told them that what they have seen from them every day, especially Devin Brown, who's, again, was early enrollment, so he is like full year 3 now. You've watched Devin Brown every day, and what you've told him by bringing in Will Howard is that we don't know if you're the guy. You might be, you might not be, but you have not proven to us yet that you are the guy. So why would anyone 2 years behind Devin Brown, 3 years behind Devin Brown, be a concern to Devin Brown or even Lincoln Kienholz, who's got a nice little head start here? Why would these guys worry about what's behind them when they've already brought in someone in front of them, because they've told them, like, hey, this is not, we need to up the competition in this room. So I think they already addressed that by bringing in Will Howard.
Well, the thing is that, yeah, we know that it's likely Will Howard to be the starter at this point. I mean, that's why you bring him in now. At Ole Miss, they brought in Spencer Sanders from Oklahoma State, and he couldn't beat out Jackson Dart. So it happens. That, it's not to say that it's a done situation, but if you're Devin Brown and you don't win the starting position at this point, it really doesn't matter who's behind you there. Or do you want to just have the position handed to you? I mean, I'm sure there's some people who do, but I don't think that's Devin. Devin, had a chance to talk to him and his dad, and when he was still just a signee at Ohio State down in San Antonio at the All-American Bowl. They want to earn their stripes, and he hasn't been able necessarily to get to that point yet. So what's a couple years behind them shouldn't be an issue. We're not expecting necessarily a case of where Julian Sayin or Aaron Noland is going to come out and as a true freshman beat everybody out. Stranger things have happened, but that is highly, highly, highly unlikely to happen. So what happens was Julian Sayin really has no impact with Devin Brown, some impact with Lincoln Kienholz, who's a year younger, almost 2 years younger if you look in the situation of not having the benefit of the spring, opting to stay, finish off his senior season of athletics and everything else. But I also don't think that this is going to be something that's really going to scare off an Aaron Noland at first. I think that Aaron Noland is probably looking for the chance. Everybody wants to be the alpha. Everybody wants to be the dog. And as Ric Flair said, and I know Ric Flair is becoming just a disgusting Michigan fan, so we really don't care what Ric Flair says. If you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. Well, Aaron Noland's going to have to go out there and beat the man, because I'm going to tell you what, Tavian St. Clair is a year behind him. And while he's unsigned, Tavian St. Clair isn't going to defer and say, Aaron, my bud, you got it. You got it. I'll hang tight. You've got to bring it every single freaking day. So load up the room, see who rises, see who falls, and go from there.
Yeah, this isn't the 90s or, early 2000s at Ohio State in the quarterback room anymore. If you go to Ohio State, you're aware that you're entering a room that's likely going to have several 5-star prospects in it at any given point. And so I think that's kind of understood. And again, I think if I'm Devin Brown or Lincoln Kienholz, I'm much more concerned. I'm not worried about Julian Sayin. I'm much more concerned about what the depth chart looks like in the middle of August. Because if I'm Devin Brown and I'm still behind, I'm not starting yet. This is year 3 now. I'm not starting. I'm behind Will Howard. Now I've got a decision to make. If I'm Lincoln Kienholz, and not necessarily the starter, but like if I'm still the third string guy, and so like Will Howard's going to start in 24, and then if Devin Brown sticks around, he could potentially start in 25, and even he'd have 26. Like, when am I going to get to play? Like, those are the things people should be worried about. Like, the Will Howard move was the move to worry about losing those guys, in my opinion, not Julian Sayin. If Devin Brown leaves because they brought a kid like 3 years younger in behind him, I don't know what to tell you. If Devin Brown leaves, he's going to leave because of Will Howard or Lincoln Keenholz even. He's not going to leave because Julian Sayin or Aaron Noland. Just not going to be a thing. So I think mountains out of molehills on that. Again, from the guy who usually is, hey, just be careful what this does for your culture. I don't see that here. What I do, and hey, we have to credit Bill O'Brien here. I think this is an early look. Could this have happened without Bill O'Brien? Yes, I believe it could have happened without Bill O'Brien. Did this make this a much easier thing with Bill O'Brien? Absolutely. Bill O'Brien was an early recruiter of Julian Sayin's. This is a guy that Bill O'Brien would absolutely stamp of approval on. This is kind of his guy / Ryan. It's kind of the intersection of Ryan Day and Bill O'Brien's guys, right? I mean, these are two guys who loved Julian Sayin as a high school prospect. So this makes a lot of sense. And this does definitely has some of Bill O'Brien's fingerprints on it in terms of those decisions of like, do we really want to bring him in another body? This doesn't happen without Bill O'Brien, wanting this. If Bill O'Brien comes in and says, no, let's not do this. I don't think there's any way this happens. So I think Bill O'Brien's fingerprints are all over this.
I agree. I mean, obviously involved in the recruitment. He was at Alabama in 22 before going to New England in 23. I mean, this recruitment had been a long time coming. If Bill O'Brien's like, yeah, no, I'm not really that interested there, I have a feeling that it was probably Ryan Day who was being the guy. We need to kind of, let's all take a breath here. We're not going to lose this kid potentially over 12 hours. Let's just make sure we know what's going on. But I wasn't a fly in the wall, but I'm assuming that Bill O'Brien was probably pounding the tables like, he's sitting right there. Let's make this happen and sort it all out. And what a run they've been on. What a run they've been on. It's a shame for those people who care about the recruiting national championship that this is considered a portal kid and not a recruitable high school kid. So this will not roll into the rankings. Because when you sit there and you look at the addition of Dominic Kirks, which we talked about on Saturday, you look at the addition of Julian Sayin, where do things kind of rank up in the numbers there? Maybe something I'll look at this week on one of our shows, what the hypothetical numbers would have been.
Yeah, certainly. Be interesting to see if that might have put them over the top. Quarterback recruiting has just changed like so much. There's some things that are still the same about, but there's a lot that has changed. It used to just be kind of like you take one guy a year, guys would lock in their spots early. You didn't see a lot of late flips, and a lot of the dominoes generally happened a year and a half before signing day. Guys locked in their spots. You took your one a year, knowing that you'd have a 4-man quarterback room. Yes, there'd be a transfer here and there, but guys would kind of wait a year or two, and you just kind of gradually stack one guy a year. Now it's like these like elite programs go through winters where they're like, we only have 2 scholarship quarterbacks. We have to go to the portal. We have to sign 2. We have to do all these different things. And so to me, this is just Ohio State adjusting to the market. The most important thing, and it's not the only thing, don't get me wrong, got to play defense, you got to block. I got to block and tackle. I get it. But you want to compete for national championships year in and year out. You want to have a very strong quarterback room to do that. And the best way to do that is to acquire as much talent as you can and let the cream rise to the top. So I think this is a savvy move. Again, if you want to, Mark Pantoni putting all the chips in the middle on Twitter, you want to play. I loved it. I'm not making fun of him. I loved it, but like, you want to play that role, then play that role. So I think they're playing that role. I think they're, again, adjusting to what the quarterback recruiting market has become. And so I'm a big fan of this. I think Julian Sayin and Aaron Noland are both amazing talents. Why not let them compete?
Absolutely.
And see what happens.
I mean, you can only have one out at a time. That's, this isn't receiver to where you have 2, 3, 4 out there, and then you gas somebody on running a 9 and you bring them off and bring somebody else in. I mean, if you don't have if you have 2 starting quarterbacks, you have none. So you don't necessarily want to get in a situation where you've got multiple guys going, but you want to have this competition. You want to have this challenge because at the end of the day, we know that the portal is going to create a lot of upheaval, and there's no position with more upheaval than quarterback when it comes to portaling and everything else. You get guys who don't even have any portal eligibility still trying to portal. Talia Tungavaloa, who obviously had to go to the draft because the NC2A did not give him his waiver. But if you sit there and you're just like, well, we've got to be completely mindful and we can't risk the apple cart, there's nothing to say that the kid can't turn over the apple cart himself and say, well, I'm going somewhere else anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And let's just look at Alabama, which, is in a very unique position of losing Nick Saban to retirement, bring in Kalen DeBoer, and half its roster has gone into the portal. I mean, Ohio State's picked up a couple of players, Texas, Florida State. I mean, they're just, it's the greatest wealth redistribution that I can remember seeing in terms of college football in more than a couple decades. I mean, this is unheard of what we're seeing here. So the way that you can insulate yourself the best is have as much talent as possible and don't let your legendary coach retire after signing day.
Yeah, just kind of the new wave here. And look, I mean, my final thoughts here are the impact. First of all, if you're Brian Hartline, you've got to be sitting here like, man, I can already recruit. Now I've got all these they've completely restocked the pond of the quarterback room. What receivers out there are not going to want to come in with Aaron Nolan and Julian Sayin, no, one of them is going to be their quarterback? Like, he's got to be loving this. And then just, again, you continue to reestablish Ohio State as a quarterback destination program. You've got 25 locked in with St. Clair. You got 2 years to figure out 26. That's an eternity in today's recruiting world. I mean, so like you have 2 full years. So whether it's Jared Curtis, whether it's Will Griffin, whoever it is, you have a long time to figure that out, but you get to kind of just focus on that now. Obviously, you keep loving up Tavian Sinclair. You don't want to make him feel like he's not important, but he's committed. He's an Ohio kid. And now it's like, okay, let's really just evaluate 26s and maybe even get a head start on 27s in the fall. So it puts them in a good spot there as well. So a lot of good things happening for Ohio State right now in the recruiting, transfer portal, NIL world. Been an incredible couple weeks after a really ugly loss. That Cotton Bowl loss feels like 10 years ago. My goodness, what has happened since then? So keep it locked in here with BuckeyeHuddle.com. We're going to have all sorts of analysis and reaction on the website, on the message board. Continue to keep it locked in there for all the latest recruiting updates. But appreciate everyone watching and listening, and we will talk to you again soon.